Well, good afternoon, Dr. Coffman. How are you today, sir?
I am great, Allison. How are you doing?
I'm good. And
Good to
good
see you.
afternoon to you too, Dr. Eckert. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be back today.
Well, good. And welcome to everybody who's watching either live or recorded. As you can see, I am once again calling Dr. Kaufman because we are still in the middle of this COVID-19 crisis. And obviously, I still have a lot of questions that I'm hoping he can answer. And you have a lot of questions. And he's been great about giving us these candid conversations during this critical time. And as you can see, I also like alliteration. And we're thrilled that Dr. Jeff Eckert, who, as you may have seen on the show already, who's a local licensed clinical psychologist in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where we are all located. Also, he and his wife, Kim, who has also joined us a few times, co-founded Roots Counseling Center, and he maintains a private practice there as well. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Eckert. And I know today we're going to be talking about choices, right? And I think a lot of us feel like we have been limited in that capacity right now, especially when it comes to coping mechanisms during this. Alan, have you been struggling with sort of your healthy choices during this time? What's keeping you, as I say, healthy and sane in equal
Yeah.
measure?
Well, and I think just my patterns have all changed. And so, the things that I kind of leaned into, for me, my biggest coping mechanism is just good regular sleep and then just cutting loose and playing with, I've got with my kids. And then I've got my wife and a couple good friends that just, we like to get silly and that just that good laugh and being able to cut loose and then just to shut it down and sleep well. It took me probably 3 or 4 weeks to figure out how I was going to do all those things. We've talked in the past and with Dr. Eckert as well. We all like a little bit of whiskey now and then, and some good wine. And I think too, just those patterns, I've had to look at those and kind of think about like, what are we doing here? But how about you, Allison?
Yeah, it's funny. I decided, I don't know why, but to bring up what has been a very reduced American Express bill over the past 3 months, but they give you an option to do the little pie chart. And so I got to see what I've been spending. And about, 65% of it has been in food because we have all three boys home and my
Yeah.
husband. So it's feeding 3 or 4 meals a day. And then the other major portion, of course, I hate to admit it, was the liquor store. And that was just, and I would say we're not overdoing it, but we're definitely doing it more regularly than we had before. It's like, especially since we've all been schooling or working from home, Alan at 5 o'clock is like, okay, we're done with work. Let's head for some appetizers and before dinner. The other thing, though, has been healthy for me since I can't or have chosen not to go to my local gym. I started running outside, and I've never been a runner, but I have found it so cathartic and really just keeping me sane. I get to listen to my tunes and it's energized. I know we've talked about that before, but I will say before this, 3 months ago, I maybe ran a 5K twice a year and thought that was a pretty good accomplishment. I'm now running a 5K 4 or 5 days a week. So I'm feeling like by the end of this, there may be a coronavirus marathon in my future. I don't want to promise anything, but
Yeah. Now, Jeff, how are you scratching your get out away and go to movie
Yeah.
coping skills?
So, all my top coping mechanisms for dealing with stress have been taken off the board. I love to go to the movies, sit with a bag of popcorn and a Coke in a dark theater, even if I'm by myself with nobody. I love doing that. It's just my happy place. I love McKay's. I can walk around in McKay's for 2 hours and just lose track of everything in the world. McKay's just reopened for those McKay's fans out there, so it is reopened at this point.
and that's our local used bookstore for those of you who
Yes,
may not be from this area, and it's huge and wildly popular. Yeah.
yes, that was a celebration day for myself and my kids, and I also work out, Allison, at the gym. And I like to lift weights, and I am a runner, and trying to figure out where to run with parks closed and gyms closed. We've ended up doing a circuit around the elementary school 30 or 40 times a week, which is about a half-mile run around the school. So just trying to get creative. That's actually been a fun thing. We have bikes over there for the kids. Kim and I, my wife, run. And so trying to get creative, I think, is key with coping, because when McKay's and the movie theater and the Y are closed, trying to find other places to dig in and still find things to look forward to. You were mentioning the bourbon, Alan, and my second son always talks about having a sweet drink at the end of the day. Can I have a sweet drink, Dad? And we've talked about the fact that our sweet drinks at the end of our day are what we look forward to as well, which I do think can be a healthy part of coping. I want to talk about that some today, how that can be healthy and where it maybe sort of crosses that line into something that's not so healthy.
Right. Well, and I think, in all those things, whether it's, shutting your brain down with kind of mindless things, sleep, eating, exercise, can all be very useful tools, but they can also pretty easily get over into some scary places. How do you encourage folks to kind of go through, like, what's a good process with yourself as you're trying to figure all that out and just make sure that you're staying in a good place?
Right. Well, one thing I've done is spend a lot of time just sitting with people, brainstorming ways to do the things that they've enjoyed doing differently. And so I think that's been helpful. People have gotten a little more outside the box in their thinking, which I think is probably good for all of us to do. I think when I see things like alcohol or video games or food, where we're all doing maybe a little more of that, and this sort of figuring out, okay, am I missing connection with people? Am I missing time with my family? Am I affecting my productivity because I'm escaping so significantly into these? So whether it's all night video game marathons and the next day I can't do my schoolwork or I'm not really engaged in it, versus, play a couple hours of Fortnite at night. That's great. That's a great escape. It's a great way to sort of take a break. But when it goes to the 10th and 11th and 12th hours, that's an issue. So have a beer when you're out grilling a burger, just at the end of your day, just a nice beer out on the deck with a burger, versus sitting out there and suddenly you're on beer number 6 and you're realizing, I'm not having a beer just to have a beer with my burger. I'm having 6 beers because I don't want to think about my life and the world. And it's probably going to affect the rest of my evening with my wife and family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's hard. I think some of it, right? We get into these routines and the routine becomes comforting and a little bit toxic in equal measure, because
Right.
I was never used to having the same day twice, right? And we joke a little bit that it's Groundhog Day, but then it can be if we're not intentional about creative ways, as you said, to make the road seem unique and exciting. And we, Alan and I have to keep distinguishing between Dr. Alan Coffman and my husband, Alan. But we love now to take walks around the neighborhood much more than we did before. We have time to do it, and the sun is lasting longer. And then we'll couple that with maybe walking to a friend's house a mile or two away and creating an opportunity for social distance socializing, right? Where we're on somebody's back porch and sitting 6 to 8 feet away from each other. And I can tell you, after so many Zoom meetings, right? I think everybody has been Zoomed out. There is something so healing to be around people. And last night we had one of those, and we laughed about something. And I laughed so hard that I can tell you that was the best medicine that I have had in a long time. And it also made me realize how long it's been since I had one of those like guttural laughs. So let's talk about sort of the coping mechanisms and when we feel like we're going from things that feel good to things that can become toxic in our lives, right? Like Netflix, right? Everybody assumes, or those video games. And I know I have friends and relatives whose kids have gone from maybe playing a game or two a day to staying up all night, right? Till the wee hours of the morning. How do you know when it's too much, Jeff? And how do you help yourself and really the people around you, your loved ones, figure out ways to curb those habits without, creating these conflicts?
So I want to start responding to that, Allison, just by talking about a message of giving ourselves some grace in this season. I want to share a quick story. Something you said reminded me of a time recently. I was working on a Zoom session with a teenage boy who just seemed a little discouraged. He'd been playing a lot of video games, not much else, just seemed just heavy emotionally and wasn't really saying a whole lot. And about a little bit before the end of our time, just sort of broke into tears and just said, "This is just all too much." And what I realized was he was trying to deal with what felt too much by something that felt comfortable. But it was sort of in the context of his dark bedroom, hours and hours a day, in there playing games. He had been bringing snacks in, eating a lot. He said, "I just feel really out of control. I feel like I'm losing it." And what I realized, and what he and I realized, was he had been going to these old friends, Doritos and Mountain Dews and Call of Duty, and just had escaped into that for most of his life. He'd lost connection with his family. He'd lost connection with anybody else, the outside world. So we started to work on, okay, this is affecting everything now. You're feeling awful. You're not feeling good about yourself. You're not feeling good about your body. But first of all, let's just say this is a hard season. This is a scary season, and it's okay if you have some bad days, and if you play video games too much during the course of a week, or if you eat too many Doritos a few days. It's okay if that happens. Let's say, though, once we've done that, let's figure out a way to maybe do it a little bit differently. So we were working on a plan for getting him outside and riding his bike and doing some things he'd wanted to do, but I think there's just so much fear about, is it okay to leave these four walls? Is it okay to walk outside? Is it okay to do these things I've always done, but I don't know if it's safe to do now? So helping him kind of stick his big toe in the water to do some of those things he enjoyed that would be better for him, while at the same time saying, hey, it's okay that this happened. It's okay that you ate too many Doritos and drank too many Mountain Dews and played too many video games. It's okay. You are okay. You are dealing with this in the best way you know how, and we're going to work on taking some steps toward dealing with it a little bit differently.
And by the way, Atari and Mountain Dew was literally like the bulk of my formative years. So I feel like I turned out okay at a
I want
time,
some little Debbie's, and I'd be right there with you.
Yep.
Exactly.
And I think too, I think that how do you kind of bring people back to the reality of like, I'm a person, and because I think when we all get scared, and then I think when there's so much change, and there's been just unbelievable change in the last few months, you want to find those comfort things, those things that feel like solid ground.
Right.
And our lives are so virtual now. Then and I think our discourse is so binary. We want to. I think it's amazing as I kind of talk with folks. We're in this phase right now where we're kind of bored with coronavirus, and we really want to pretend that it just isn't here. But at the same time, we really need to be disciplined about what we're doing so that we can live our best lives as we go forward. And I think just a lot of very even kind of simple in my life, medicine or fact-based things become very emotional very quickly because um, I'm trying to talk about something nuanced and people want it to be binary and can get very, very angry. And then, they don't have a place to put that. And so we end up going to things that, whether it's food or, sleep or just checking out on Netflix. And how do you like, what are some good ways that you can, in a very positive and healthy way, just kind of bring, you know, to be safe, to say like, hey, remember, I'm Alan, and you're Jeff, and we're friends,
Right.
and it's okay. I get you seem stressed, and that's okay, and let's support each other. Because I think for me, I really rely on others to kind of give me a heads up when I'm getting too far down the path with some unhealthy coping mechanisms, and it's really been hard to keep that engaged through all this.
Well, and I like that idea of binary versus nuance. There's a lot of people that operate in a black and white binary way and way they view the world. And I'm really challenging people. This is a good season to learn how to be in the gray. So it's not either we don't play video games at all or we play 10 hours a day. It's not either we don't drink at all because we're scared of what drinking will do, but we're not going to drink 5 drinks a night, 7 nights a week. So finding that place in the middle to say, hey, I can do it in this way. This will make sense. I can still enjoy this. And back to what Allison was saying as well, just really trying to get people now in this season to sort of take a step out and say, hey, it's okay to sit on a back porch or sit around a fire pit 6 or 8 feet apart from someone and be in the same space and have that sense of appropriate normalcy where I like being with people. I like sitting on a back porch. I like being around a fire, but can I do that? Is it okay to do that? And finding ways to do that in ways that are wise and in ways that are healthy, but don't cause you to say, oh my word, I don't know if I can leave my house. I was talking to my brother. He's a professor at Baylor, and he said, I've got really intelligent students who are some of my better students who are literally fearful to walk outside right now. They're fearful to walk outside, definitely not to be around people. And so trying to get through that to say, hey, we don't have to go and be on the beaches shoulder to shoulder, but we can go and sit on a back porch and have time with friends and connect with friends and feel that sense of, I'm Alan, you're Jeff, you're Allison, and this feels good to be in this space together.
Yeah.
Yeah. I go back to that Maya Angelou quote where she said, we did the best that we could with the information we had.
Right.
And that's the way, as you said, Jeff, like to give ourselves and others grace, right? Like I got a flat tire this week and I immediately like panic and they came over, Quality Tire came over and like pumped it up. And then I had to get there fast before it leaked again. And then I get in there and I realize I don't have my mask. And I had this sense of total panic, and there was nobody else in there except the people working and me. And I all of a sudden started, apologizing profusely. I'm getting a little anxious recalling it. And they said, "Oh, you don't need a mask." As if to say, you're a friend of ours, you're our neighbor, which I appreciated. But I also looked back and I said, not for me. I wanted it to protect you all because I care about what you're doing. And he looked at me and said, thank you. Right. So there is a way for us to have these conversations, right? And we talked about getting in elevators and if the space invaders are too close to us, how do we say what we're feeling in a respectful way while still remembering to humanize those people? And that's getting harder, especially when we have a mask, right? A face covering. And it's a tendency to sort of see people not the way we did before.
And I think a lot of that kind of binary thinking drives substance abuse or eating, because we want to be we want the right answer, and so we think, well, I need to lose 15 pounds, and so I just can't eat like this. And the truth is, like, no, I probably just need to stop eating the whole bag of potato chips instead of and it's, I think, to live in that kind of gray area it's hard, and so for a lot of this, the temptation is just to give up, to say, well, I can't do it, and so I'm just going to take that. Like, I drink 5 beers every night, and that's what we do right now, and I think that kind of place, it really, we do need each other so much in our close relationships to be there. Like, so when I have my 5 beer night, I need my wife to be there and encourage me, so that doesn't go on. And I think to be able to ask for that and to be in a place where we appreciate those people that are safe in our lives, that it's so easy to say, are you red or blue, and then and if I know what your binary is, and then I know all about you. And the truth is, we are all way more complicated than that. And so I think to your point of like getting your toe in the water is just stepping out and take just one person and let them be a little more complicated than what we're used to, because that's the kind of thing that I feel like is really going to support us when we're struggling with kind of going in bad directions with these things.
I want to address this as we're nearing the end of the segment. We had a question on Facebook, and I know this is a question on all of our minds as we continue to see openings of different entities. It are the places of worship, right? So the churches, the mosques, the synagogues, the other places where people are used to finding that support, right? When we talk about how do I find comfort, for a lot of people, especially in the South, it's their place of worship and it's their faith. And I think the struggle has been not being with people to do that, has also been very challenging. but they're balancing that, a lot of people, with their fear of being in those spaces again. Are there recommendations you have for people who are looking to go back to their places of worship as they start to opening? If it's a certain, I know I saw a church over the weekend that was doing spacing out people. They were wearing masks. It felt very, vacuous almost, and a safe space. But as people get more comfortable, those spaces will get more crowded, just like airplanes, right? When is it okay for them to go back personally? And when is it okay for them to say, look, I'm not comfortable here. I'm going to pray in my car or at home through Zoom.
Right. And I think, we keep coming back to this, but the idea of being graceful and all of that, and realize, like, some people just can't deal with it. And so I'm not going to judge. I don't feel comfortable in this setting. So as you kind of evaluate, I think I've been telling folks, just go slow, and with the church and synagogue and mosque and other gatherings, I encourage folks to start small. To those people that you need the most in your life, the people that are the ones that you're closest to, that really support you in your spiritual life, in your social life, in your family structure. Having an honest conversation about, well, this is where I'm at right now. This is what we're doing. We're being very purposeful about hygiene. We're wearing our masks to protect other people. We're cleaning a ton, and if we feel bad, we'll tell you, and we would like you to do the same. And if someone's like, and we've had that experience with our friends, they said, no, that's not where we're at. And we say, okay, no judgment, but we just can't do this right now. And I think in the religious aspect of taking the folks that are closest to you, and just going slow, whether it's gathering together in your home and then watching the live stream from the service, starting to kind of pull in some of the ceremonial stuff that is important to a lot of people. It's like sharing communion or sharing, a Friday night dinner together. I think those kind of things, going slow and giving yourself grace in that you take too big a step and you realize, like, oh, these people weren't serious about this at all. I'm going to take a step back. And I think we all need to be very slow in that, because, back to our binary thing, what most people want to do right now is just forget. They want to forget any of this is going on. And so we saw that a lot with kind of the graduation. There was a lot of, big celebrations, and people just wanted to pretend, that this isn't around. And I think, there's going to be a lot of pressure as we get back in to say, yeah, I'll go along with this. We're all going to forget. And I think, that's something that is not good for us as a community. It's not going to help us. It's going to mess up more of the fall. It's going to be harder on our medical system. It's going to make things more difficult as we move forward. And I get it. There's so many mixed messages, and there's been not a lot of guidance for organizations who are trying to walk this out. It seems like, I look to this leader and they say one thing, and I look to this leader and they say another. So, I get it. It is really hard. But I think as you move forward, just paying attention to what you need, and going slow. And then if you find yourself, you're like, that was too fast, I don't feel comfortable, backing up. And then just giving a lot of grace to everyone that you're interacting with, because we're all struggling with how to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, and I don't have to figure out who the expert is. That's why I call you twice a week, Dr. Coffman, because I take whatever you said. My kids are so sick of saying, well, Dr. Coffman says, right? And Jeff, the same to you. Thank you so much for joining us, for bringing some calming messages of how to find healthy coping mechanisms. I think from both of you gentlemen, the word of the day to me is moderation, right? Everything in moderation, and let the guilty pleasures in our life sort of be the exceptions and not the rules. And I think if we can live by those standards, as always, we use those words, grace and space, right? Mm-hmm. Like, let us all find the grace to give ourselves and the others in our lives. Remember that we are all the human kind of people, no matter which way we might fall on any side of whatever aisle you happen to be on, especially that grocery aisle where I experienced my own COVID rage, and also the space to be able to make those choices. I know we have people who are saying there's so many things out there, that we cannot control, but what we can control is our reaction to them.
That's right.
And so just remember that is always going to be a choice we have. But Dr. Eckert and Dr. Coffman, thank you as always for joining us. And Dr. Coffman, I'll see you on Sunday, right?
I'll see you. Thanks
I'll
for having
see
me.
you. All right. Y'all
Thanks,
have a great
Allison.
week.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Alan.